Station Irving Street Kid Shaw read his last bread with a cold millionaire. Yeah, RS later, that man was begging at his door. The rain came down like the sky had been ripped open, pounding on the rusted tin roofs of Kibra's slums. It ROA read like thunder, turning the dirt streets into rivers of mud, washing over this forgotten corner of the world. The air smelled like wet garbage and smoke from king fires, sometimes mixed with the stench of sewage from the open gutters. 12-year-old Taku shivered in the corner of an abandoned shipping container, soaked to the bone. His skinny body curled into the gap between the metal and the dirt, clutching something wrapped in old newspaper and greased paper, his only hope for the past 3 days, a hot RD piece of cornbread. He'd found it in the trash. The day before, a tourist had dropped a whole bag of bread from a street stall, and Taku had snatched it up before anyone else could. He hadn't eaten it yet. Because once he did, there'd be nothing left. He couldn't even remember the last time he'd had a full meal. His mother had died of fever before the dry season ended, and his father never came back from sea urching for water. Now, he was just another shadow, a street kid who survived by digging through trash, collecting cigarette butts, or running errands for vendors in exchange for scraps. A cold drop of rainwater seeped through a crack in the container and trickled down his neck. He tucked the bread deeper into his RMS, trying to keep it dry with what little RMTH he had left. Closing his eyes, he tried to remember the smell of his mother's corncakes, the last bit of RMTH in his memory. Then, footsteps. Heavy, unsteady, splashing through the downpour. Taku tensed, pressing himself further into the shadows. A man stumbled toward the container, slipping in the mud before collapsing face-first into the water. He wore a fancy gray wool coat, the kind rich people wore, but now it was soaked, weighing him down. His hair was a mess, his skin pale, lips tinged blue. His hands shook violently. Taku recognized him. He'd seen him on TV, Daniel Kaeru, Kenya's mining tycoon. Newspapers called him the BA refute boy turned billionaire. His CARS were bigger than the shacks in Kibera. And yet here he was, lying in the mud like a stray dog, trembling. Taku's first instinct was to run. Rich men didn't care about the poor, and the police beat kids like him for fun. But the way this man gasped for air, his chest heaving, eyes unfocused, Taku froze. He's dying. He looked down at the bread in his hands. It was his only chance to make it through the night. If he ate it, maybe he'd survive. If he didn't, he might not see morning. But if he didn't help this man, he'd die right here. Taku gritted his teeth and unwrapped the bread. It was damp at the edges, but he tore off half like it was something sacred. The other half, he held tight in his fist. He crawled four-way kneeling in the mud, and held out the piece to Daniel. Sir, he said, his voice small but clear over the rain. Eat, or you'll die. Daniel lifted his head, his gaze slowly focusing. A skinny boy, covered in dirt, eyes bright like stars in the storm. He looked at the hot piece of bread, then at the half still clenched in the boy's hand. You aren't you hungry? His voice was really a whisper. Taku shook his head, rainwater dripping from his forehead. I can last. Something inside Daniel cracked. 50 years of life, people bowing to him, begging for favors, losing everything because of his decisions. And yet here was this boy starving, giving him half of the only food he had. With shaking hands, Daniel took the bread and chewed slowly. It tasted like mold and dust, but every bite felt like swallowing guilt. The whole time, Taku just watched, still. Holding his own half, making sure he ate. When it was gone, Daniel managed to sit up, leaning against the container. He read at the boy, breathing hard. What's your name? He asked. Taku. Taku, thank you. Daniel's voice was rough, but real. I won't forget this. Taku didn't answer. Rich men's promises were just wind, here 1 second, gone the next. Daniel struggled to his feet, gripping the container for balance. Before leaving, he fumbled in his soaked coat and pulled out a waterlogged business card, wedging it into a gap in the metal. If you ever need help, he said, come find me. Then he read into the rain. Taku didn't take the CA road places like that. People like him, they weren't for kids like Taku. He just rewrapped his half of the bread and tucked it back into his shirt. The rain kept falling. But somehow, he didn't feel as cold anymore. Leaning against the metal wall, watching the downpour, he whispered to himself, I saved a man. Even if he was rich. That night, Taku dreamed. He and his mother sat in a field of green corn, the sun warm on their faces, the air sweet. She handed him a fresh corn cake, golden and steaming. When he woke, the rain had stopped. The sky was pale gray. He touched the bread in his shirt, still there. He took a small bite, chewing slowly, like it was the best thing he'd ever tasted. He didn't know it then, but that act of kindness in the rain was like a seed ride by the wind, quietly taking root in the soil of fate. And he couldn't have guessed that years later, the man who'd once collapsed in the mud would knock on his door, not with hunger and despair, but with a light he'd never dared to imagine. This version keeps the emotional weight and vivid descriptions while making the language flow more naturally in English. Let me know if you'd like any tweaks. 2 years later, 2 years pass like storm clouds. Over Kibera, silent, unnoticed. Taku had grown from a scrawny 12-year-old boy into a wiry 14-year-old. His face was still thin, but his eyes held a new sharpness, hurrying by the streets. That night in the rain, a half-piece of bread, it felt like a distant dream now, buried under the daily fight to survive. He still lived in the same abandoned shipping container, though he'd patched the gaps with plastic sheets and rags to keep out the worst of the weather. Every morning, before dawn, he'd crawl out and race to the dump at the edge of the slum, his grocery store, his battlefield. He scavenged for plastic bottles, scrap metal, broken electronics, anything he could sell. If he was lucky, he'd find half-rotten bread or a half-empty soda can. On good days, he made a few shillings, enough for a corn cake or a cup of bean soup. Taku wasn't alone. He ran with a gang of street kids they called the Shadows. They had no real leader, but Taku had. Earned their trust, partly because of the legend of the boy who read his last bread. There was Jomo, quick-fingered and sharp-tongued, who could pick locks and eavesdrop like a spy. Asha, quiet and tough, who'd been disguising herself as a boy for years. And Benji, who bragged that his father was a chief, though no one believed him. They watched each other's backs, read food, took turns keeping watch against rival gangs and the police. One afternoon, Taku crouched by the roadside, sorting old phone batteries to sell to the recyclers. The sun burned the back of his neck. Suddenly, Jomo came sprinting toward him, waving a water-stained newspaper. Taku! Look! Big news! Jomo gasped, slapping the paper down. The front page showed a grainy photo of a man in a wrinkled suit, head bowed as he walked out of a courthouse, reporters SWA remaining behind him. The headline screamed. Mining TYC and Daniel Ka bankrupt. Assets seized, billions in debt. Taku's stomach dropped. He knew that face. Older, wearier, but those eyes. The same man who'd collapsed in the mud that rainy night. The man who'd taken his bread. Daniel Ka. Taku murmured, his fingers brushing the photo. Memories flooded back, the storm, the trembling hands, the half-loaf, the whispered I won't forget you. He'd imagined it 1,000 times, the rich man returning, sweeping him out of Kibera, sending him to school, giving him a home. He'd even kept that soggy business card, though he'd never dared to use it. Now, the newspaper said it all, bankrupt. Seized. Billions in debt. The man who could have changed his fate had been crushed first. He's like us now, Asha whispered, crouching beside him. Serves him right. Benji spat. Rich men steal from the poor. Karma got him. But Jomo shook his head. The paper says it wasn't his fault. Mineral prices crashed, and some government officials teamed up with foreign companies to steal his mines. Even his own family ran off with the money. Taku stayed silent. He didn't understand mining or stocks or corporate betrayal. But he understood hunger. Cold. Desperation. That man in the wrinkled suit right now, he might be curled up somewhere, just like Taku had been, wondering where his next meal would come from. Something twisted in Taku's chest. Not satisfaction. Not even pity. Just a deep, aching recognition. The man he'd saved had fallen anyway. Was anything fair in this world? I'm going to find him, Taku said suddenly, standing up. Benji gaped. You're crazy. He's broke now, probably worse off than us. What are you gonna do, beg from a beggar? No, Taku said. He remembered me. Maybe I can help. Jomo gripped his shoulder. Taku, Nairobi's huge. If he's hiding, how will we find him? And the cops and debt collectors are re-hunting him. It's too dangerous. Taku didn't argue. He folded the newspaper. Carefully and tucked it into his pocket. That night, lying in the container, listening to the coughs and crying babies outside, he couldn't sleep. He remembered his mother's last words, Taku, no matter how hard it gets, don't lose your heart. That half loaf of bread had been his heart. Now, so was this. At dawn, he made his choice. He split his savings, 320 shillings, about $3 into two piles. One for the shadows. The other, he kept. He packed a spa re-shirt, a tin water bottle, and the worn-out newspaper. Take care of each other, he told Jomo, Asha, and Benji. I'll find him. If I'm not back in a month, assume I'm gone. The shadows nodded. On the streets, goodbyes were normal. Sometimes, you turned a corner and never saw someone again. Taku set off. He searched all over Nairobi slums, wealthy neighborhoods, churches, soup kitchens. He asked street sweepers, food vendors, homeless men. No one had seen the fallen Tycn. Some said he'd fled to Tanzania. Others whispered he'd been kidnapped by debt collectors. A few swore he'd jumped into the Nairobi River. A week passed. No leads. Taku's money ran low. He ride luggage at bus stops, scrounged scraps behind restaurants. He slept under bridges, got chased by cops, NERLY got robbed by con men. He root to wonder, had that rainy night even happened? Had I won't forget you just been empty words? But he didn't stop. Whenever he wanted to quit, he touched the newspaper in his pocket and remembered those eyes lost in the rain, then sharpening with recognition. I won't forget you. Those words, like a single ember, still glowed inside him. The road to Mombasa. The highway from Nairobi to Mombasa stretched like a dusty snake across the cracked EARTH, weaving through dried-up grasslands and thorny shrubs. Taku walked with a worn canvas bag slung over his shoulder. His 320 shillings had run out days ago. Now, he survived by hitchhiking, doing odd jobs for villagers, carrying water, cutting grass in exchange for a meal or a place to sleep. His feet were blistered, then calloused. His legs ached like they were filled with lead. But his eyes stayed fixed on the east, Mombasa. The port city by the Indian Ocean. One of the last places Daniel might be. Along the way, Taku saw an Africa far wider and harsher than the mud of Kibera. Near Machakos, he passed a village where the EARTH was split open like it had been chewed by some giant beast. Dead cornstalks leaned sideways in the fields. Cows and goats, skin stretched over bones, panted in the shade. A few kids crouched by a dried-up pond, spilling the last of the muddy water into bowls, straining it just to drink. An old woman sat outside her hut, staring at nothing. The dry season's back, a man herding donkeys sighed. Last year, we had something. This year we might have to leave. Taku silently held out a piece of saved cornbread. The man shook his head. Boy, you're hungrier than we are. Taku didn't argue. Here, drought wasn't news, it was life. Government aid moved like slow rain clouds, always too late, always picked apart by the big men first. People survived on the stubbornness passed down from their grandparents, season after season. Leaving the village, Taku's chest felt heavy. Daniel had been a mining Tycn, rich from the EARTH's wealth. Yet the people on that EARTH couldn't even get clean water. What kind of world is this? In Mombasa, he asked around the slums. Are the docks a place even rougher than Kibera, full of smugglers, gamblers, and drug dealers? He talked to dock workers, beggars, even a priest. But Daniel's name might as well have been right off by the wind. A mining boss if he's broke, why come here debt runners all go to Tanzania, a coconut vendor snapped. Taku didn't give up. For 3 days, he slept under an abandoned fishing boat, surviving on scraps tourists left behind. On the 4th morning, he changed course north to Arusha, near the Tanzanian border. No direct buses went there. He hitched a ride on a banana truck, bouncing for hours until the driver dropped him at a gas station near Tsavo West. Arusha next ride could take days, the attendant said. You could walk the herder's path, cross Tsavo West. 2 days, maybe. Taku chose to walk. He avoided the main roads, afraid of police. Wandering miners were illegal. Using the sun and scraps of maps, he stepped into the Tsavo wilderness. The heat was brutal. Dust choked the air. He walked by day, slept under trees at night. Once, he saw elephants drinking at a distant waterhole. Another time, a lone rhino nearly charged him. He drank dew, ate wild berries. On the 3rd day, fever hit. His head pounded. His vision blurred. He thought he'd die there, like so many nameless. Wanderers, buried under the sand. Then, Maasai herders found him. They gave him herbs, goat's milk, let him rest in a leather tent for 2 days. Their elder, white-haired and wise, told him in Swahili, Ubuntu, Mtoto. I am because we are re. Your life makes ours whole. Taku cried. It was the first pure kindness he'd felt since leaving home. When he recovered, he kept walking north. He slipped past border patrol, crossed into Tanzania. Finally, Arusha Ape read beneath the shadow of Mount Meru. For 2 days, he searched soup kitchens, churches, slums. Hope faded. Then, on the 3rd evening, with the sky blood-red over Arusha, Taku passed an old Lutheran church. On its stone steps sat an old man. He wore a frayed gray sweater under a faded jacket. His hair was wild, his beard patchy. A rusted tin cup sat in front of him, a few coins inside. His hands thin, shaking. Taku's heart lurched. Those eyes sunken, bloodshot, but the shape, the stubborn glint deep inside Daniel Karu. Taku stood frozen, throat tight. The man who'd once had billions now hunched on church steps like a dried leaf, begging. He stepped closer, crouched down. Sir Daniel looked up, blank. Taku took a breath, speaking softly, just like that rainy night. Do you remember the bread? Daniel's pupils flickered. He read at Taku's face, his sharp cheekbones, those bright eyes. Memory struck like lightning. Taku's voice was sandpaper rough. Taku nodded. Daniel's TRS fell instantly. He reached out, trembling, then pulled back like he was too filthy to touch the boy who'd saved him. How did you find me? I kept looking, Taku said. The papers said you lost everything. I was afraid you'd give up. Daniel laughed bitterly, TRS cutting through dirt. I'm already broken. No company. No home. No friends. Even my son calls me garbage. I don't even have the strength to die. Taku listened. He didn't offer empty words. Just sat beside him, like that night in the rain. Night fell. The air turned cold. Taku pulled out half a corn cake, his last food. Ned Rying boxes that day. He tore it, held out a piece. Eat, he said. Or you'll die. Daniel read at the rough bread, then at Taku's steady gaze. Finally, he took it. Bit down. More TRS. Now, the roles had reversed completely. The rich man was the beggar. The beggar was the giver. Softly, Taku said, Sir, let me take you home. Daniel looked up at this skinny, unshakable boy and saw something he thought was lost forever. Home, he whispered. I have one. Taku nodded. Kibera. My container. It's yours now. Night in Arusha. The night hung heavy over the old church in Arusha, the cold biting through the cracks in the stone. Taku and Daniel huddled in a recessed corner of the back wall, pressed against the freezing rock. Taku had torn his only ragged blanket in half, one piece for each of them. Daniel clutched his half, still shaking. Not from the cold, but from something deeper. You cold? Taku asked softly. Daniel shook his head, then nodded. My bones are fine. It's my heart that's frozen. Taku didn't answer. He just gathered a few dry sticks he'd scavenged earlier and lit a small fire with a lighter he'd traded for old batteries. The flames were weak, but in the dark they vet out a little circle of rmth, flickering over their faces, one young, weathered but bright, the other old, vet deep with failure. Sir, Taku finally said, can you tell me how you ended up like this? Daniel read into the fire for a long time. The flames danced in his eyes like fragments of memory. I was born in Kibera, he began, voice rough. Just like you. Digging through trash. Sleeping in tin shacks. I swore I'd never go hungry again. Never beg for scraps. He told his story, how he'd worked the mines as a laborer, how he'd stumbled on a rich vein, how he'd borrowed money, too much money, to dig it out. How he'd built an empire. The glory days, shaking hands with presidents, signing deals in boardrooms, sending his kids to elite schools, wrapping himself in mansions and cars. But I forgot, he said with a bitter laugh. Forgot where I came from. Sta root looking down on Kibera, on the poor. Thought they were lazy. Stupid. Not worth my time. I'd ride through the slums with my car windows up, afraid their bad luck would rub off on me. Taku listened, firelight steady on his calm face. When my wife got sick, I was in Dubai closing $1 billion deal. By the time I got back, she was gone. My daughter hates me. My son thinks I only see about money. When the company collapsed, I went to my old friends. They all said, we've got our own problems. My own nephew, Americus, he had my power of attorney. Stole the last of my money and vanished. His voice cracked. I thought money could buy anything: loyalty, family, respect. But when it was gone, I realized I'd bought nothing. Not one person would have given me a cup of water. Except you. Taku looked down at his rough hands. That night in the rain, I thought you were dying. That bread was all I had. If I didn't need it, I might not last 3 more days. But if you died, that was it. I just didn't want to watch another person die in front of me. Daniel read at him, stunned. You were starving, and you gave me your only chance to live. Taku nodded. My mother said living isn't just about feeding yourself. Sometimes, helping someone else. That's how you save yourself too. Daniel was quiet for a long time. Tears slid down his face. You saved me twice. Once my body. Now my soul. Taku pulled out the worn newspaper from his bag, laying it by the fire. When I saw this, I came looking. I don't understand. Bankruptcy. But I know you're worse off now than I was 2 years ago. When you were rich, no one helped you. Now you're broke, and I can still give you half my bread. Is that fair? No, Daniel whispered. Not at all. Maybe it's punishment. I failed so many people. This land. Myself. He looked up at the stars. I thought I'd conquered the EARTH, dug up gold and gems. But I forgot real treasure was never underground. Where is it then? Taku asked. Here. Daniel touched his chest. In ERTS like yours. They fell silent. The fire shrank to embers, but that tiny glow held on stubbornly against the night. Taku, Daniel said suddenly, do you hate me for not coming back for you? Taku thought about it. Shook his head. No. I know how it is with people like you. Busy. And you remembered me. That's enough. People like you. The words hit Daniel like a punch. For the first time, he saw clearly the arrogant, walled-off world he'd belonged to. I'm not people like me anymore, he said quietly. Now I'm just like you. A beg ar. No.
Taku shook his head. You're not a beg AR. Then what am I? You re-lost. Taku said. And now, I'm taking you home.
Daniel looked at this boy, feeling something he'd never felt before, not gratitude, not guilt, but awe. This kid who'd grown up in garbage dumps understood life better than he ever had with all his degrees and boardrooms.
Home, Daniel murmured. Is Kibra really a home? Yes. Taku's voice was firm. My friends are there. The shadows. It's dirty. Poor. Broken. But people shall their food. Sit with you when you're sick. They know H.A. Rambi.
H.A. Rambi all together, Taku explained. We shouted when we build schools, dig wells.
No money, but we've got each other.
Daniel closed his eyes, as if he ringed the word for the first time. He'd spent his life chasing wealth, but he'd never truly pulled together with
anyone.
His company had been a dictatorship. His family, a cage of silence. Maybe he opened his eyes, looking at Taku.
I need to start learning. Learn what? How to be human. Daniel said. How to live. Like you. Taku grinned, teeth white in the dark. Easy.
When you're hungry, find food.
When you're cold, make fire.
When someone needs help, give it.
Simple. But to Daniel, it rang like a bell. The night deepened.
The fire died completely, but neither of them felt cold anymore. A strange peace settled over them, two beg ARS from opposite worlds, one young, one old, who traded places and somehow found each other in the dark.
Taku leaned against the wall, drifting to sleep. Daniel stayed awake, watching the boy's face. Silently, he made a promise, if I get one more chance, I won't waste this kindness. Gently, he pulled his half of the blanket over Taku. No bread tonight. No riches. No titles. Just the fading RMTH of a dead fire, and two ERTS keeping each other alive in the dark. The first light cut through the mist over the highlands, revealing the church's outline. When Taku woke, he found the ragged blanket pulled up to his shoulders. He turned to see Daniel sitting beside him, watching the sunrise, his eyes no longer empty, just quiet. Time to go, Taku said softly. Daniel nodded, standing slowly, brushing dust off his clothes. He moved stiffly, but his back was straighter than the night before. No more words were needed. They shouldered their meager bags and route the journey back to Nairobi. The return trip was rider. Daniel, past 50 and used to luxury, could rely walk without gasping. Taku slowed his pace, supporting him, teaching him how to conserve energy, small steps. Steady, like an ox. They hitched a ride on a vegetable truck, then crossed Sabo on foot. This time, Taku was the guide. He showed Daniel which wild berries were safe, warned him about snake-infested grass, taught him to circle their night fires with stones to keep animals away. How do you know all this? Daniel panted. In Kibra, no one teaches you. You learn or you die, Taku said. Hungry. Find food. Cold, make fire. Someone hits you, run faster. Daniel laughed bitterly. I read 1,000 books. Never read how to live. Taku didn't answer. Just handed him a leaf-wrapped bundle of wild berries. Eat. Sweet. 10 days later, Nairobi's skyline read tall buildings, smoking chimneys, the slums' tin roofs glinting in the sun. That's Kibra. Daniel read at the endless maze of scrap metal and plastic sheeting, his voice shaky. Yeah, Taku said. Home. Inside Kibra, Daniel entered another world. Narrow alleys packed with people. Open sewage. The smell of king smoke, garbage, sweat. Food kids sprinted through the mud. Women ked over fires. Men clustered outside makeshift. BARS, smoking. The shadows spotted Taku first, shouting as they ran to him. Taku. You're alive. Jomo tackled him in a hug. We thought you were dead. Asha's eyes were wet. Benji eyed Daniel. Who's the old man? Your stray. Taku patted Daniel's shoulder. This isn't Z Daniel. I promised him a home. Home, Benji snorted. This ain't a home.
It's rust and dirt. It is now, Taku said firmly.
I'm back. So is he.
The kids exchanged glances but stepped aside. Taku led Daniel to the shipping container, clearing a space in the corner, laying down dry grass and rags. He borrowed hot water from a neighbor.
Rest, sir, he said.
I'll find food. Daniel sat on the grass, taking in the rusted walls, the leaking roof, the muddy floor. This was his life now. He'd slept in presidential suites. Now he'd live in a box worse than a prison cell. Yet, strangely, he felt no anger. Just a quiet calm. At least here, someone waited for him. Taku returned with 2 corn cakes and a bowl of bean soup. Payment for Ca Ryan goods. Eat, he said, handing it over. Daniel took the food but didn't start. He looked at Taku. I want to help. Can't just take without giving. Taku blinked. What can you do? Daniel thought. Then, seriously, I can teach. Reading. Math. The outside world. Taku's eyes lit up. Really, Jomo wants to write. Asha dreams of school. But no one teaches. I can, Daniel said. I lost my money, not my mind. From that day, Daniel became Pa-RT of Kibera. He sorted trash with Taku at dawn, teaching the kids to separate plastics, metals, wires. This isn't garbage. It's resources. The kids scoffed. Bottles worth nothing. What if we collect tons? Daniel countered. What if we build our own recycling center? He formed the Green Light crew. Taku, Jomo, Asha, Benji, and a few others. Taught them to test metal purity with simple tools, keep ledgers, negotiate. With city recyclers. I used to mine the EARTH, he told Taku, grinning. Now we mine the city. This e-waste has gold, copper, silver. Richer than ore. Taku listened, fascinated. He'd never known disc-ride phones and wires held treasure. But we can't afford machines, Jomo said. Don't need them, Daniel said. We'll use old ways. Acid baths for copper. Magnets for iron. Hand sorting. Step by step. They built a shack behind the container, hung a sign, Green Light Recycling. Day 1, they collected BA Relay 20 kilos, EA running under 100 shillings. But Daniel smiled. Look. We've STA route. Taku STA read at that rickety shack, hope flickering in his chest. He'd saved a rich man. And that rich man was teaching them to change their fate with knowledge. That night, lying in the container, listening to crickets, Taku touched the half corn cake he'd saved. He didn't eat it. Because tomorrow, they'd begin a new. And it had all STA root with a piece of bread in the rain. Dawn in Kibera. Morning smoke curled over Kibera, mixing the smell of burning wood with the stink of open sewers. Taku woke EARLY, creeping out of the container to avoid waking Daniel. He crouched under the Green Light Recycling shack, flipping through the ledger he'd made from a scavenged notebook. Scrawled in uneven handwriting. Plastic bottles, 12 kilograms 80 shillings. Tin cans, 5 kilograms 30 shillings. Old wires, 3 kilograms 60 shillings. Total, 170 shillings, $1.50, 40 shillings more than yesterday. Taku whispered, grinning. In Nairobi, this wouldn't buy a coffee. But for the shadows, it was real hope. Daniel limped over, leaning on a stick he'd found. His face had more color now. He checked the ledger and nodded. Good. Sorting's improving. Today, we dismantled those old phones. Phones. Jomo crouched NEARBY, smashing a can open with a rock. What's in them? Circuit Boa RDS. Daniel picked up a broken phone. CA refully prying it open to reveal the green Boa RD inside. See these gold lines? Gold-plated copper. With the right method, we extract it. Gold. Benji gaped. You're lying. This trash has gold. Absolutely.
Daniel pointed at the towering e-waste pile, a smaller version of Ghana's infamous Agbogbloshie dump.
This garbage has higher gold content than some mines.
But no one reclaims it properly. The kids sta read.
They dug through trash for years, never realizing they were walking over buried treasure. But how do we get it out? Asha asked.
You're not a chemist. Daniel smiled. No fancy machines. Just citric acid, salt, and a bit of electricity. Ilea rened old mining tricks as a boy. Taku's eyes lit up. So we do it ourselves, yes. But ca refully.
Some liquids are re-toxic, no dumping, no kids touching. From then on, green light changed.
No more just sorting trash. They became urban miners. Daniel taught them gloves, ventilation. Safety steps. Taku organized. Jomo, who'd sneaked internet lessons, researched. Asha recorded data.
Benji mostly complained and supervised. By week's end, they'd dismantled 50 phones, extracting a pinch of reddish powder.
Is this copper? Taku asked. Gold copper mix?
Low purity, but valuable. They sold it to a proper metal refinery.
The manager frowned.
Where'd you get this? We recycled it, Taku said proudly.
Tests left the man stunned.
You've got skills, we've got him. Taku pointed at Daniel. The refinery offered long-term deals, 5 times normal scrap prices. That night, the Shadows built a fire, kept a huge pot of bean stew, bought 4 corn cakes.
Their first full meal in memory. We made 800 shillings. Jomo counted the cash. Enough for new shoes? No. Taku shook his head. This buys a water filter. Silence. A filter? Benji yelled. We don't even have a well. Why?
Because kids here die from dirty water, Taku said quietly.
My little brother did. If we have money, shouldn't we save lives first? The group fell silent. Asha whispered, I agree. Daniel watched Taku, pride swelling. This boy understood more than survival, he understood duty.
3 months later, Greenlight bought a small filter from an aid group, installing it at the community center.
100 people lined up to fill buckets. The water ran clear.
An old woman cupped it in her hands, crying.
It's clean. Taku watched, while RMTH flooding his chest.
That night in the rain, his mother's words, the half-loaf of bread, it had all led here. Kindness did come full circle. Word spread.
More kids and women joined.
They weren't trash pickers anymore. They were reclaimers. Daniel's knowledge had taken root in the slums. But light attracts shadows. One evening, as Taku locked up, 3 men in black jackets approached.
Not scavengers. Not locals. You're green like that?
Leader sneered. Yes. Making good money, 10,000 a month. Know who owns this land? Taku's stomach dropped. Every RT of Kibera had bosses demanding protection money. But trash pickers were ignored.
Until now.
We work for ourselves.
Not anymore. The man slapped a phone number on the table. 2,000 a week.
Or this shack burns tomorrow.
Taku stayed silent. Fighting meant violence. Paying meant stealing from the kids. We'll think about it.
The man smirked and left. That night, Taku told Daniel. Daniel sta read at the STARS, as if seeing his own past, the politicians and gangsters who'd gutted his company. They want the money, he finally said. Do we pay? No. Daniel's voice turned. RP, I used to bribe them.
Now, I fight with truth.
Truth, yes. They take cash because this e-waste funds black market metal smuggling. But they dump the toxins, lead, mercury, cadmium, right into the rivers, poisoning
our children. Taku flinched. The kids playing in sewage.
The rashes and fevers every rainy season. What if we film it? Daniel's eyes burned.
Show the world who's killing Africa's future.
Taku studied this man who'd once collapsed in the mud, now standing like a lion. I have a phone, he said softly.
Jomo taught me.
Then film, Daniel said. For the filter.
For the kids. For that piece of bread.
The recycling shack was quiet under the moonlight, but Taku's heart pounded like a drum.
He clutched the cracked second-hand phone, palms slick with sweat. Daniel's words echoed, film the truth. For the children.
But he knew once they took this step, there was no turning back. At dawn, Taku gathered the shadows, Jomo, Asha, Benji. He told them about the threats, about Daniel's plan. Film what?
Jomo hissed.
Those guys pouring poison, they'll break our legs.
But it's our water they're poisoning.
Asha's voice was steel. My brother had a fever last month, doctor said heavy metals.
Do we just watch Benji kick a pebble?
We're just kids. What can we do? Taku looked at them.
We're not just kids. We're green light. We extract gold. We filter water. Why can't we speak? He raised the phone. STA routing today, we document. Who takes bribes? Who dumps toxins?
Who smashes our shack?
No faces. No names. Just proof. After a long silence, Jomo nodded first. I'll film the black jackets.
Asha, I'll log times, places, license plates.
Benji gritted his teeth. I'll keep watch.
The operation began. Taku and Jomo took turns hiding in abandoned shacks near the e-waste dump, zooming in with the phone.
They captured
3 a.m., UNMA ked trucks dumping stinking chemicals into open drains. Black-jacketed men shaking down street vendors for 2,000 shillings each. A gold chain we a ringman, later ID'd as protection boss Masanjo, bragging.
In a bar, those brats think they're eco-heroes joke. This slum's mine. Every clip got saved to a microSD card hidden in the container's walls.
Daniel used an old laptop, borrowed from a cybercafe, to compile evidence with captions. This waste contains lead, mercury, causes child brain damage, organ failure.
Masanjo's gang profits while poisoning us.
Real recyclers get crushed.
Proof piled up. So did danger. On day 3, the shack got trashed. Roof torn off. Sorting bins kicked over. Circuit boa RDS trampled. Red paint on the wall, stop or die. The shadow shook with rage and fear. Benji sobbed, let's go, Taku. They'll kill us. Taku knelt, picking up mud-caked boa RDS. His hands trembled, but his voice didn't. Go, we're back to eating garbage. Waiting for poison water. He looked up. Every video we took is a bullet. Time to fire. That night, guided by Jomo, Taku uploaded the first clip anonymously. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Captioned in Swahili and English, Kibera's kids are re-saving themselves. But someone's poisoning our future. Who saves us? #KiberaTruth #eWaste Crisis. No names. Just Greenlight team. At first, silence. Then, an eco-blogger with 200k followers shared Reddit, Africa's urban mines are being bled dry by black markets. These kids are writing their home with hands. Retweets exploded. By day 3, East Africa voice messaged. Got more evidence? Yes. Taku sent everything. The reporter was stunned. 2 days later, East Africa voice dropped the bomb. Kibera's silent war, child recyclers versus toxic e-waste mafia. Names. Photos. Proof of Masanjo's gang colluding with city officials. The internet erupted. #Save Kibera trended. Green EARTH International demanded government action. The storm had come. Masanjo went berserk. He stormed the shack with 5 thugs. Who posted THT. He kicked over a bin. Taku and Daniel stood there. Ground. Us, Taku said. You poison water. Shake people down. We filmed it. You little rat. Masanjo grabbed Taku's collar. I'll vanish you tonight. Daniel stepped between them. Touch him, and the world sees your face, your address, your crimes. It's all in the cloud now. Can't erase it. Masanjo froze. This ragged old man spoke like a C.U, not SCA read to die we are re, Taku said from behind Daniel. But we're more SCA read of kids drinking poison. Masanjo spat, you'll see. But the worst came that night. Jomo and 2 other filming kids got snatched off the street. 30 minutes later, a call want them alive, delete everything. Shut down. Leave Kibera. Or tomorrow's news shows 3 dead brats. Taku's hands shook so badly he nearly dropped the phone. He looked at Daniel, terrified, helpless. Daniel took a deep breath. Turned on the laptop's camera. Taku, he said calmly, my turn on camera. He is Frag Kalaar, spoke Clea our English to the lens, I'm Daniel Ka Ru. Former mining TYCN. 2 years ago, I was a beggar dying on a church step. A street boy named Taku gave me half his bread. Brought me home. Now, we recycle e-waste in Kibera. Fight for clean water. But we crossed the wrong people. They've taken children. Threatened murder. Masanjo. Corrupt officials. Black market profiteers, I know you're listening. I'm no longer rich. But I still have a voice. If these kids are Reha Ahmed, this video auto-publishes. Your names. License plates. Transaction records, all attached. This isn't a threat. It's a promise. That boy saved me. I won't watch him and his friends die in darkness. He hit record, then told Taku, upload everywhere. Set to publish at dawn. Taku, TRS and eyes, obeyed. All night, the shack stayed lit. Taku, Asha, Benji, Daniel eyes on the screen, waiting for sunrise. They knew, this was war. And they were no longer begars. They were warriors. 4 a.m. The recycling shack's lights still burned. Taku's bloodshot eyes stayed glued to the laptop screen. Daniel's video was uploaded, set to auto-publish in 24 hours, unless they cancelled it. They'll kill them, Benji whimpered in the corner. No, Taku forced his voice steady. They won't. The world's watching now. Asha clutched the paper with the kidnapper's license plate. The police. Did we reported? Taku's laugh was bitter. The officer said we'll investigate. Then nothing. Probably on their payroll. Then a notification. East Africa voice reporter Tigrin Earth alerted the president's office and Interpol. Hold on. Help may be coming. Taku's chest was red. They weren't alone. At dawn, whispers spread through Kibera. Women at the water filter murmured, the green light kids got taken for filming poison dumpers. That water. We drink it. Anger simmered in the alleys. For years. They'd endured evictions, pollution, neglect. But this TA eating kids who tried to help by 9 a.m., the first arrived. The Shadows families, Jomo's aunt, Asha's little brother, Benji's neighbor. They stood outside the shack, holding buckets, silent. By 10 a.m., more came. Trash pickers. Street vendors. Shoemakers. Their signs were scraps of ca board clean water now, free the kids, no toxic waste. By noon, hundreds stood quietly, like a forest of defiance. Someone brought a drum. The slow, deep beats echoed a call to unity. Taku and Daniel stepped out. Taku raised a shaking hand. Thank you, but we don't want trouble for you. An old woman gripped his wrist. Taku, when you brought us clean water, did you worry about trouble? You're Kibera's light. We won't let them snuff it out. The crowd rumbled, H.A. Rambi. H.A. Rambi. All together. The chant spread through Kibera, reaching even Nairobi's skyscrapers. Then, at 2 p.m. a miracle. Jomo and the others were found in an abandoned Wari house, beaten but alive. The kidnappers had fled. They folded. Daniel clenched his fists. The pressure broke them. Taku sprinted to the hospital, hugging a bandaged Jomo. The boy grinned weakly. Did it work? Yes, Taku whispered. The whole world saw. The president's office finally spoke. A special task force would investigate Kibera's e-waste mafia. City officials suspended. Masanjo's assets frozen. 3 days later, a silent march filled Nairobi's streets.
Taku, Daniel, and the Green Light Kids led hundreds of Kibera residents holding reclaimed metals, copper wires, circuit boa RDS, purified gold flecks, glinting in the sun.
No slogans. Just footsteps and drums. Their silence was louder than screams. BBC. CNN. Al Jazeera. Cameras SWA med the Eco-WA rioters from the slums. A reporter shoved a mic at Taku. Weren't you afraid? Terrified, he said. But more.
Storm had been freezing. But the half-loaf Taku Shah Red had met him to the core. Yes, he said softly.
Like coming back to life.
Time flowed like the Nairobi River, slipping past Kibera's tin roofs. The old green light recycling shack was gone. In its place stood a 2-story brick building, its walls painted with bright murals of EARTH, recycling a rose, and children's smiling faces.
A wooden sign out front read, Africa Reborn Workshop, Kichuocha Kuzaliwe Upiacha Africa.
Taku leaned on the workshop's balcony, watching the scene below. 20 young trainees bent over worktables, learning to safely dismantle old phones, sort precious metals, operate small-scale refining tools. The air no longer reeked of acid, ventilation filters kept it clean.
A digital screen displayed today's recycling stats. He wasn't that starving 16-year-old boy anymore.
At 21, Taku stood tall, steady-eyed, wearing a simple work shirt.
A small metal pin
gleamed on his collar, shaped like a maize leaf, cast from their first batch of reclaimed urban gold.
Brother Taku. A girl with braids sprinted upstairs. The new trainees asked to visit the water center. Of course, Taku smiled. Take them. And tell Asha I'll teach the afternoon class. The girl bounded off. Taku turned to his office.
Photos lined the walls, the silent march, him leading with a salvaged circuit boa RD. Him and Daniel shaking hands at the workshop's groundbreaking. His Union Ecoliterai rode. The door creaked open. Daniel shuffled in, leaning on his cane. 5 years had whitened his hair and hunched his back, but his gaze was still Shah RP.
No longer a fallen TYCN, he was the workshop's honorary advisor, the kid's beloved Mz Dan. Ready for today's lesson? Daniel asked. Yeah, Taku nodded. The circle of good.
Daniel chuckled, sipping tea from a recycled glass mug.
No one better to teach it.
At 2 p.m., the workshop hall buzzed with locals, community women, even visitors from Rwanda and Uganda. Taku stood at the front, holding not a PowerPoint clicker, but a fresh cornbread loaf. 5 years ago, he began, voice calm, I held half a stale bread crust.
Freezing. Soaked. Starving. Then I saw a man dying in the mud. I gave him that half loaf. The room hushed.
Many knew the story, but never from his lips.
I didn't know who he was. If he'd come back.
I just knew if I didn't help, he'd die.
And I'd remember my own cowardice forever. He paused, lifting the fresh bread. Today, I hold a whole loaf. Baked at Kibera's first women-run bakery, funded by our recycling profits.
Every bite here comes from circles.
From helping hands.
He took a bite, chewing slowly. That night, I didn't just Shah re-bread.
I Shah read hope. And hope it regenerates.
Someone sniffled in the back. Africa Reborn isn't my doing, Taku continued.
It's Jomo, Asha, Benji. Every trash picker who refused to bow.
The neighbors who urged silently.
Mz Dan's knowledge. The world's listening EARS.
His eyes met Daniel's. The old man nodded, pride glowing. Today, Taku raised his voice, we launched the 1000 Takus project. Gasps rippled through the crowd. We'll train 1,000 youths from slums, war zones, drought villages, free tech skills, schooling, housing. They'll return home to START their own workshops.
Passing the light 4-way road. His voice rang clear. You're not trash. Your land isn't a gravy road. Your future rebirths itself.
The applause thundered for minutes. After UARD, Taku walked Daniel home, a cozy cottage the community built him beside the workshop.
The silent Millionaire photo hung by the window. You did it, Daniel said, watching the workshop lights glow. More value than all my mines combined. You taught me, Taku replied. Knowledge in the right hands. Daniel shook his head. No. You taught me. Real wealth isn't gold. It's the light we kindle in each other.
He opened a wooden box, handing Taku a polished gold pin, an exact replica of his maize leaf badge, but finer.
My last private stash, Daniel admitted. From my old mines. Now it belongs to the 1,000 Takus. Taku cradled it.
Heavy, not just the gold's weight. That night, Taku stood under the stars Akibara's directness, now spar-clad with workshop bulbs, water center neon, bakery ovens, a whole galaxy of light. He touched his pin, whispering, Mama, we didn't just survive. We shined. The wind howled over the tin roofs, Shah RP with cold.
Even with Africa Reborn workshop transforming the slum, nights still bit deep.
Taku had just finished a video call advising Rwanda's first new recycling hub when a faint knock came at his door.
Who's there? Taku called.
The workshop had night Gwa RDS.
No one should be here. Only a weak cough answered. He opened the door.
Wind slapped his face. On the steps knelt a man, clothes in tatters, face crusted with dirt, clutching an empty bowl. Please, the man's voice was sandpaper.
Food, I'm dying. Taku's breath caught.
That tone, that desperation, he knew it too well. But when he saw the man's eyes, his heart stopped. Hollow. Bloodshot. But beneath the grime a flicker of old arrogance.
Americus. Daniel's nephew. The one who'd stolen his last funds, left him bankrupt.
5 years ago, this man had sped through Kibera in a sports car. Now he knelt in rags, shaking like a stray dog.
Taku didn't slam the door. Didn't speak.
Just watched the man who'd once sneered at poverty now drowning in it. Americus seemed to recognize him, eyes widening in shame.
I don't know you. You're Americus, Taku said calmly. Dan's nephew. Americus flinched as if struck. Don't tell him. I'm not human anymore. Taku turned. Dan, someone needs help.
Inside, Daniel sat by the fire, reading. He looked up and froze. 5 years couldn't erase that face. Slowly, Daniel rose, gripping his cane. Each step seemed heavier than the last.
Americus saw him and collapsed, sobbing into the dirt. Uncle, I'm sorry, I lost it all. Gambling, debts, they're hunting me. Taku watched Daniel. This was the rightest choice, turn away the betrayer. Or offer bread. Daniel didn't speak.
He walked to the kitchen, took a golden cornbread loaf, still warm, and placed it in Americus's bowl. Eat, he said softly.
Or you'll die. Americus read, trembling.
He grabbed the bread, biting into it like Taku had that rainy night, desperate, grateful.
Taku smiled.
Tastes like the rain. Daniel watched snow dust Kibera's rooftops. Yes, he whispered.
Like coming alive. Americus didn't leave.
He stayed, doing the filthiest jobs, clear ring drains, hauling waste. Silent, working like a man trying to scrub his soul. Clean. Taku never asked about his past.
Here, we don't see who you were. Only what you do now.
Daniel taught him basic recycling skills sometimes. Americus rened fast, the haze in his eyes slowly clear ring. The 1,000 Takus project launched. First batch, 20 Somali refugees, their eyes holding both SCARS and hope. Taku stood before them, holding a loaf, tearing it in half, keeping one piece, offering the other. Welcome to Reborn, he said.
Here, no one's a beg AR.
Just people rising. What you give always comes back. Like this bread, once my last meal. Then a lifeline. Now 1,000 hopes. In Africa, rivers dry.
Land cracks.
But the light inside us, if someone lights it, it never goes out. Outside, the snow stopped. First dawn light hit the Africa Reborn sign, and every face turned Tawa RD tomorrow.